appropriately off in color for them, has huge spikes, but so too does the green, which is the state violence against Boko Haram. And the state often resorts to violence, represented here in this green, largely because of systemic weaknesses where security forces are incompetent, mutinies become frequent, and human rights abuses are all too common, unfortunately. Indeed, within this is the environment Boko Haram operates in, and even within Boko Haram you have plenty of divisions, and you have ones that are more or less violent. Last year there was sort of a cult organization that emerged in Boko Haram called the Slaughters that was particularly violent. And so extremism becomes, in a way, relative. This is another graph. You see the top graph is that of the violence of the state, which in the news and analysis is often missed, whereas Boko Haram, and they're essentially can be graphed, violence of Boko Haram state can be essentially seen as increasing in concert. Turning to Somalia, we find a somewhat similar, somewhat different situation. And of course, warlordism, the arming of the clans has been occurred much before Al-Shabaab emerged. And this was facilitated by both formal agreements with the government and international actors, as well as corruption by security forces. Leading to great insecurity in Somalia far before Al-Shabaab emerged. Insecurity of personal, national insecurity, food insecurity, energy insecurity, essentially were in many ways pervasive and dealt with. And this is the environment in which Al-Shabaab emerges and essentially models this, an insurgency that sometimes uses terror as a tactic operating in an insurgency state. Al-Shabaab has tried to use religion as a unifying force to various degrees of success, breaking down some clan lines, but also often failing in this and having to resort back to clan identities. So Somalia and Nigeria are both weak states where extremism is only part of insecurity. And it makes and these groups make the headlines, but it also does not exist within a vacuum. And state weakness or fragility, again, is relative. Turning to politics and the political dynamics, sometimes we forget that extremism is really at root a political issue, and people trying to force political change. And this, of course, is very true in Nigeria and Somalia. And there is a continuous interplay in the political dynamics between international, national, and local politics. And as one U.S. politician said, all politics is local, which I think is a fairly true statement looking at these situations. The Nigerian state, historically fairly weak, is now relatively strong, but also in an incompetent way often. And its strengths vary greatly geographically. Outside the capital is much weaker, such as in the northwest, where Boko Haram operates. And it's much more about will versus capacity. And how do we explain this? Yet at base, it remains a highly extractive state, and people have little benefits to show for it. One, of course, is the benefit of education, which, of course, then is something the Boko Haram targets. But one example of this dysfunction is in the northern provinces, but particularly the northeast, where decentralization has led to a great amount of, or a huge lack of accountability, lack of transparency, and manifesting in rampant corruption. This is evidence both in what are called security votes, where different groups. So we see Boko Haram often, very frequently, mirroring the state and state corruption. And we see the same thing in Somalia. We see a little bit different, but certainly corruption of the Somali government feeding into Al-Shabaab and its corruption. Over-centralization of the Somali state leading to over-centralization of Al-Shabaab to its detriment. But at heart are these relations between centralization and centrifugal forces, separating forces. The last two sets of comparison, economic relations. This is more than just funding of extremism, but how people relate to each other financially. And here's where we bring in the issue of criminality, which we haven't discussed much, but transnational criminality and local criminality. And northern Nigerian economy, northwestern Nigerian economy is very trade-based, highly localized, often very precarious. And this is why attacks on markets like this one in Jos become so damaging to the economy and to the local livelihoods. This is where there's this sort of peri-urban areas, the suburbs of major cities are often where Boko Haram operates. And its tactics, financing tactics mirror this. They go from extortion to kidnapping to ransom, bank robberies, general criminality, very little sort of strategic thinking here. In contrast, is Somalia, which has a much more international dimension, and certainly Al-Shabaab has used these international historic trade links to its benefit, being involved in taxation of charcoal trade to the Gulf region, being involved in taxation of cotton from outside of Somalia, and involved in the trade of ivory from Kenya and South Sudan. Again, linking into international connections much more than in Nigeria. But it's still a very extractive economic system. This is in contrast to the camel trade, of course. It's also one of the things that Al-Shabaab hasn't done very well, is look into the international telecommunications business and banking system. They've used it, but not really benefited economically from it. So finally, the sociocultural milieu, environment that these groups exist in. We see here the mysterious snakes, bees, attack Boko Haram in the Sambisa forest. How do we explain this in in explaining extremism? It's very difficult. I say there's three things at least that are going on here. One, the Sambisa forest is where traditionally northern Nigerians sought refuge from extremists 100 years ago in the area, and this is considered where the non-believers went. And this, of course, creates some contradictions. Traditional beliefs versus newer Islamic beliefs. This is where the school attacks are about attacking Western education, but also attacking foreign influences and sort of a neo-colonial narrative that emerges when you look at what this leader, Dr. Shakau, talks about. Anti-Boko being book is not only physically the Western education book, but essentially meant to be white people. And then tactics, you see the sort of Boko Haram often just assuming tactics of international jihadists, so-called, but in fact, they're much more localized, and it's about charisma and icons. Again, slight differences with Somalia, where you have clan hierarchies defining the environment, and then Al-Shabaab replicating this within it. Trying to cut across clans with this very bureaucratic, highly hierarchical organization compared to Boko Haram. Secret police and media are very sophisticated, very dangerous, and in this way they can operate quite easily within this social system, cultural situation. It's a fascinating, I think ultimately, and I've gone fairly fast over it, but the socio-cultural milieu of extremist groups in some of these areas, fascinating, under-researched area. We often simply, again, going back to my original statement, put it in the terrorism narrative, and everything becomes about extremist, jihadist, Islamist, whatever you want to say, but in fact the local issues are much more at play. To come to some conclusions and to finish up, on the left are the sort of four different areas, issues that I talk about, and then on the right are some of the potential ways to combat this extremism that are maybe a little bit new or a little bit at least not what's being done. Certainly there's national and international responses, but really comprehensive approaches, and I think Turkey, of course, is leading the way here on not only looking at the violent side of security, but also food security, etc. Politics